You ever have that dream? The one where you're behind the decks, commanding a dance floor, mixing tracks perfectly while the crowd just goes wild? The fantasy is amazing, right? But then reality hits, and the cost of all that professional DJ gear is, well, a little insane. But what if I told you that you could get that entire pro setup right in your own home for less than what you'd spend on a night out? Well, that's exactly the promise of TribeXR, and we're going to break it all down today. This might just be the coolest and most accessible way to start your DJ journey. So become a VR DJ. This isn't just some catchy slogan, okay? It's really the core of what this is all about. And let's be clear, we're not talking about a rhythm game where you're just hitting buttons. This is about learning a real, actual skill that you can take into the real world. It really sets the stage for a hands-on creative experience. So how does it pull it off? We're going to break this explainer down into 5 main parts. First up, we'll step into the virtual DJ booth and see what kind of gear you're working with. Then, we'll get into how you actually learn the ropes. After that, we'll talk about the user experience, what it really feels like, the good and the bad. Then, we'll check out the community, and finally, we'll cover the simple steps to getting started yourself. Okay, section 1, the virtual DJ booth. This is where it all begins, right? Getting your hands on a professional-grade setup without, having to take out a small loan. The keyword here is authenticity. We're not talking about some generic, made-up equipment. TribeXR has officially licensed Pioneer DJ gear. I'm talking virtual replicas of the club standard CDJ 3000s and the DJM 900 mixer. This is a huge deal because it's the exact same setup you'd find in pro booths all over the world. So the skills you're learning here, they translate directly. And on top of that, you can upload your own music or tap into millions of songs through Beatport and SoundCloud Go Plus. It's the whole package. So having all that amazing gear is one thing, but it's pretty useless if you have no idea how to use it, right? And that brings us to our next section, because this is where TribeXR goes from being just a cool simulator to an actual school for DJs. And here's the thing, you're not just thrown in at the deep end and expected to figure it out. Not at all. The software has these really immersive tutorials and masterclasses from DJ Hoppa, who they call the DJ coach. He gives you this structured path that's literally designed to take a complete beginner, someone who's never touched a deck in their life, and turn them into someone who can confidently beat match and mix. Okay, so the official features, the tutorials, it all sounds great on paper, but what does it actually feel like when you put on the headset? This next part is all about the real user experience, with some honest feedback from people who've spent a ton of hours in that virtual booth. And this really shows you the balance. On the one hand, what do users love? The super low-cost entry to DJing, for sure. They're also really impressed by how accurate the beat matching is. Some even say it feels about 95% real. But it's not perfect. People report that the FX sounds are kind of low quality, and a bigger deal for some, there's no scratching in vinyl mode. So if you're into genres like hip-hop or trap, or scratching is a huge part of the art form, this is definitely a major drawback to consider. And this quote from a user, it just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures that magic moment of discovery. You go in just thinking, I'll mess around for a few minutes. And then you look up, and suddenly 2 hours have flown by. It just goes to show how the software can turn a little bit of skepticism into real passion, just by making the whole process incredibly fun and addictive. So you've learned the basics, you're getting lost in the mix for hours at a time. What's next? Well, this is where TribeXR gets really interesting. It stops being just a personal practice tool and starts becoming a social platform, connecting you with a whole global community of other users. And this is where the journey gets super exciting. You can just pop into other users' virtual rooms to hang out and find new music. But you can also take the stage yourself. You can perform for a worldwide audience on streaming platforms, or even play sets at virtual parties in social hubs like Altspace and Sanzar. It's that huge leap from just learning by yourself to actually performing for other people. All right, we're at our final section. Let's say you're intrigued. You're ready to give this thing a shot. What are the absolute must-know practical things you need to know before you take your first step into that virtual booth? First things first, the price. Now, the standard price can change, but TribeXR has been on sale for as low as $20 US. Compare that to the thousands, literally thousands, you'd spend on a physical setup. The barrier to entry is practically non-existent. So pro tip, keep an eye out for those big Steam sales to snag the best deal. Now listen up, because this next point is incredibly important. You must be running Windows 10. The developers are super clear about this. It's not a suggestion, it's a hard requirement. You need it to make sure the software actually works properly without a bunch of frustrating tech headaches.
And finally, here's a fantastic tip for anyone who's still on the fence. Just use Steam's refund policy as a risk-free trial. Seriously. Just buy the software, test everything out. As long as you've played for under 2 hours, you can get a full, no questions asked refund if you decide it's not for you. It's the absolute perfect way to see if it clicks.
So let's recap real quick. You've got a virtual booth with pro-level gear, lessons from an actual coach, a global community to share with, and a price that's almost impossible to beat. TribeXR really offers this complete, super low-risk way into the world of DJing. So the only real question left is, are you ready to step up to the decks and drop your first beat?